Jack lived alone on the edge of a quiet frontier planet, far from the cities, far from war, far from trouble. He fixed old machines and broken ships for passing traders. His workshop was full of wires, rusted tools, and the quiet hum of his favorite radio. It was just another cold evening. Jack was finishing repairs on a busted drone. Outside, the wind howled like it always did in the dry hills. Then he heard it. A soft noise like scratching. It came from the door. Not loud, just enough to make him stop what he was doing. He grabbed a flashlight and opened the door slowly, expecting maybe a stray animal or sandfox. But what he saw made him freeze. A small figure stood there. Her skin had a soft violet glow. Her hair was silver, thin, and messy like she hadn't eaten or slept in days. Her eyes were large and glowing faintly blue, like moonlight in a cave. She looked up at him and took one shaky step forward. She was tiny, barely up to his chest, dressed in torn cloth that looked like it had once been part of a noble robe, but now it was dirty and ripped. She was clearly not human, clearly young, and clearly scared. She didn't speak, didn't run, just reached up slowly, her hand trembling. Jack didn't move. He knew aliens from all across the systems. But this girl, she wasn't like the others. She looked at him with hope, not fear, like she had come a long way just to find him. And then it happened. She gently placed her small hand on his cheek. It was soft, warm, and strangely calming. Her skin glowed brighter the moment she touched him. And then, like she realized what she had done, her eyes widened in shock. She gasped, her cheeks turned from violet to deep red, and she pulled her hand back quickly, covering her mouth. Jack blinked. He was still trying to process what just happened. "Hey, are you hurt?" he asked gently. She shook her head, then nodded, then sashia. Hook again, clearly confused. She looked down, avoiding his gaze, her hands clenched tightly in front of her chest. Jack stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in," he said. "You'll freeze out here." She hesitated, then slowly walked in, her steps light like she was afraid to make sound. Jack closed the door and offered her a warm blanket. She sat down in the corner of the room and wrapped herself up tightly, eyes still on the floor. She didn't say a word, but Jack could feel something had just happened, something important, something he didn't understand yet. He made some soup and placed the bowl in front of her. She looked at it, then looked at him. She waited for him to eat first. Only after he did, she took a small spoonful, then quickly took another. And another. She was clearly starving. Jack sat nearby, watching her closely. Every few seconds, her eyes flicked up to him, then darted away. Her cheeks were still red. She looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. He smiled softly and said, "You don't have to talk now. Just rest." That night, she fell asleep curled up in the blanket. Her breathing was quiet, her face calm. Jack looked at her one last time before turning off the light. He still didn't know who she was, where she came from, or why she touched his face like that. But deep inside, he knew one thing. This was no ordinary meeting. Something had started. Something neither of them could stop now. The next morning, Jack woke up early. The sky outside was still dark, and the sun hadn't climbed over the hills yet. He stretched, walked into the workshop, and looked over at the small blanket in the corner. It was empty. Panic hit him for a second. Then he saw the alien girl crouched quietly behind the workbench. She was hiding, her face turned away, hands gripping the edge of the metal table like she was trying to stay invisible. "Hey," Jack said softly. "It's okay. You're safe." She didn't respond, not even a nod, just stayed curled there, like she couldn't bear to look at him. Jack knelt down slowly, trying not to scare her. "I'm not angry," he said. "You can come out, I won't hurt you." Still no answer, but he noticed something. Her hands were shaking slightly, and her cheeks were still red, even brighter than last night. Her head was low, eyes fixed on the floor. He stood up and walked away to give her space. Maybe she needed time. After all, she was from a different world, a different culture, maybe even a different set of rules about what her touch meant. As he made breakfast, she finally peeked over the table. Her eyes followed his every move, but when he looked back, she ducked down again. He smiled quietly and placed a plate of warm food on the bench. "Here," he said, "you must be hungry again." A few minutes later, she carefully crawled up and sat at the edge of the bench. She reached for the food without making a sound, but when she caught him watching her, she froze again. This time, she turned her back completely, eating silently like a shy animal. Jack sighed. "All right," he said, "let's try this one step at a time." He took a pen and a notepad and drew a small stick figure of himself, then another smaller one with two round glowing eyes. He pointed at the bigger one and said, "Jack," then he pointed to the smaller one and looked at her. "Iham." Hoping for a response. She hesitated, then tapped her chest. "Luma," she whispered. so softly it was almost a breath. Jack smiled. "Luma," he repeated. "Nice to meet you." Luma blushed even deeper and looked away again. The day passed slowly. Jack worked on an old mining bot, and Luma watched him from across the room. Every time he got close, she backed away. Not in fear, but like she was nervous to be near him. When he offered her a tool, her fingers brushed his by accident, and she dropped it instantly. Her skin glowed again, and she gasped. Covering her mouth, Jack noticed, but pretended not to. He didn't want to scare her more. Later that night, Jack found her sweeping the floor with a worn-out broom. She was cleaning the dust carefully, like she wanted to be useful, like she needed to do something to repay him. "You don't have to do that," he said gently. She shook her head and kept sweeping, her small hands moving fast, like she was trying to forget something or hide something. Jack sat down and watched her. "Luma," he said, "did I do something wrong?" She stopped moving. Then slowly, she turned her head and whispered in broken English, "I touch. Mistake. Not supposed. In my world, only special ones." Jack's eyes widened. He still didn't understand everything, but he got the meaning. That touch wasn't casual. It meant something deep, something personal to her people. He said quietly, "It's okay. You're safe here. I won't tell anyone." Luma looked at him for just 1 second, her eyes wet with emotion. Then she nodded and turned away again, still blushing. Jack didn't press her further. He didn't need to. He just knew. This girl wasn't just a guest anymore. Something had connected them, even if she didn't mean to. And whatever it was, it had only just begun. Let me know if you want me to continue with part 3, Alien Rules, Human Heart, in the same 65. So word emotional and suspenseful format. Days passed slowly in the quiet hills. Jack continued fixing old machines, welding parts, and stacking metal crates. But now, he wasn't alone. Luma stayed in the workshop with him, always close, but never too close. She kept her distance, but never left the building. She cleaned the corners, organized his tools, and watched his every move with silent curiosity. But if Jack came too near, she would take a step back or turn away, her glowing eyes always full of emotions she couldn't express. Jack didn't force anything. He spoke to her gently, taught her simple English words, showed her how things worked, how to fix small parts. She learned quickly, smarter than any student he'd ever met, but she still avoided his touch. One morning, he found her sitting near the solar heater, holding a broken necklace in her hands. It looked like alien metal, silver with tiny glowing symbols. She traced it with her fingers and whispered something in her language, soft and sad. Jack sat nearby, giving her space. "What's that?" he asked. She held it tight, then said slowly, "Family, before they gave me away." Jack's chest tightened. "Gave you away?" Luma nodded. "For deal. Trade. I didn't want. I ran." Jack finally understood. She wasn't just lost. She was running from something dark, from a life she didn't choose, a deal made by people who didn't care what she wanted. "Did they hurt you?" he asked. She looked down and whispered, "Not body, but heart." Jack nodded slowly. He didn't need more details. Pain was pain, no matter the kind. Luma stood and walked to the far window, her silver hair catching the morning light. "Touch, my kind, very deep," she said. "Only for chosen, only once." Jack remembered that first night, her small hand on his cheek, her shock, her fear, her blushing. It wasn't just a mistake. She had done something sacred in her culture, something she didn't mean to do, something she couldn't undo now. "I didn't know," Jack said softly. "I'm sorry if I made it worse." She turned and looked at him, her voice trembling. "Not worse, but now, I feel strange." "What do you mean?" "My heart, when you near, beats fast," she said, pressing her hand to her chest. "I don't understand. Human make me warm inside." Jack's breath caught. He didn't expect that. He didn't know what to say. She walked closer, just a few steps, but enough to show she was trying. Is this love?" she asked, eyes wide and innocent. Jack smiled gently. "Maybe it is. Maybe it's something close." She didn't say anything, but her cheeks glowed again, brighter than ever. That night, a soft storm blew outside, rain tapping against the roof. Jack made a small fire inside the heater. Luma sat across from him, watching the flames dance. Between them sat 2 cups of warm broth. She spoke softly. "My people, if touched by mistake, must stay near, or heart will break." Jack looked up. "So, if I ask you to leave?" She shook her head fast. "No. I get sick. I maybe die. His heart sank. You're bound to me? She nodded slowly. Yes, but also I want to be. Jack looked into her glowing blue eyes and saw no fear there now. Only hope. Something deep and real. He reached out slowly, not to touch, but to offer his hand. She looked at it, hesitated, then placed her tiny hand in his. This time, she didn't pull away. Their fingers rested together in silence, the fire flickering beside them, two lives from two worlds now tangled by one mistake, or maybe one miracle, and neither wanted to let go. Luma had been quiet all day, more than usual. She didn't hum softly like she sometimes did, didn't peek around corners or ask what wires did what. She stayed near the wall, her small hands pressed flat against the cold surface, staring outside at the dust-covered hills Jack noticed. He had come to understand her moods. Her glowing eyes always told a story, and today, they were dimmer than usual. You okay? He asked, wiping grease off his fingers. She didn't answer. Jack stepped closer, but stopped halfway across the room, careful not to scare her. Luma's body was stiff, like she was holding something inside. Her breathing was slow, too slow. Then, without warning, she clutched her chest and dropped to her knees. Luma! Jack shouted, rushing to her side. She was shaking, her whole body trembling like a leaf. Her skin shimmered with strange colors, light violet, soft blue, then back to her normal pale tone. She curled into herself, hugging her small frame. Jack dropped beside her, not knowing what to do. What's happening? He whispered. She gasped and whispered back. My bond. Too strong, heart too fast. He remembered what she said the night before, that being near him kept her alive. But now it was hurting her. Her hand reached toward him, trembling. He didn't hesitate. He took it gently, pressing her small fingers into his palm. The moment their skin touched, her shaking slowed down. Luma let out a deep breath, her body relaxing. Her skin stopped glowing wildly and settled back to normal. Jack stayed there, kneeling beside her, holding her hand like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Maybe it was. She opened her eyes slowly, looked up at him, and said in a tiny voice, "Thank you." He gave her a soft smile. "You scared me." She nodded. "I scared too." He helped her sit up against the wall, then went to get a blanket. When he came back, as she was looking at her hands, confused and afraid, Jack wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and sat beside her. He didn't ask more questions, didn't push for answers. He just sat quietly, close enough for her to feel safe. After a while, Luma spoke. Sometimes, bond too strong for young ones. Jack looked at her. Is it dangerous? She nodded slowly. Only if the other does not care. His chest tightened at that. I do care, he said softly. She turned her head slightly, looking at him with those glowing eyes. I know now, she whispered. That night, Jack set up a small cot for her closer to his own bed, not too close, but not far either. He left a soft light on, just in case she needed to see him in the dark. In the middle of the night, he heard soft footsteps. He opened his eyes and saw Luma standing near him, holding her blanket like a shield. Can I sleep closer? She asked. He nodded without a word. She placed her cot right beside his and lay down, her back facing him. After a few minutes, she whispered, Jack? Yeah? I'm not cold anymore. Good, he whispered back. She didn't speak again, but a moment later, he heard the softest sound, a tiny laugh, almost like a giggle. Jack smiled in the dark. The next morning, she was up early. She brought him a mug of hot drink, though she almost spilled it on his lap. Sorry, she said, grinning for the first time. Jack laughed. You're learning, Luma nodded proudly. Human drinks. Very warm. Like you. He chuckled and shook his head. That's a new one. For the first time since she arrived, Luma wasn't afraid of smiling. She still blushed sometimes, still looked away when she remembered their first touch. But now she was starting to trust the feeling inside her. And when Jack saw her smiling with glowing cheeks, he felt something too. Something warm, something real. It was a quiet morning. The sky outside was clear, the wind was soft, and Jack had just started working on a busted cargo lift. Luma was sitting on a crate nearby, humming softly, drawing in the dust with her finger. For the first time in days, everything felt peaceful. Then the alarm bell rang. A sharp, high sound echoed across the hilltop. Jack froze. He hadn't heard that alarm in months, not since a pirate ship passed too close. Luma looked up, eyes wide with fear. Her humming stopped, her whole body stiffened. Jack ran to the scanner. Incoming ship, he muttered. Small, fast. Not from this region. Luma stood slowly, her lips trembling. They found me. Jack turned to her. Who? She whispered. Hunters. Within minutes, the ship landed near the edge of the ridge, kicking up a storm of dust. 3 tall figures stepped out, armored in dark plates with glowing helmets. Their movement was sharp, trained, deadly. Jack grabbed his old blaster and stepped outside. Luma followed but stayed behind the doorway, peeking from the shadows. One of the armored figures raised a hand. Human mechanic, he said in a deep voice. We are here for the girl. Jack didn't lower his weapon. Why? She is property of the Zareth clan, the hunter replied. Escaped royal, bonded illegally, must be returned. Jack's heart raced. She's not property, he said. She's a person. The hunter didn't blink. Not in our law. Return her, and you will not be harmed. Luma stepped forward slightly. No. Please, she whispered, her voice cracking. I don't want to go. Jack saw the fear in her eyes. He remembered her trembling touch, her soft laughter, the way she trusted him even after so much pain. No, he said, standing tall. She stays here. The hunter raised his weapon. Then you choose death. The blaster shot hit the ground near Jack's feet, warning only, but loud enough. To shake the earth, Jack jumped back and activated the old defense shield, barely working but better than nothing. Sparks flew across the wall as another shot hit it. Luma screamed, Stop! Don't hurt him! Jack turned. Luma, go inside. She didn't move. They'll kill you. I've faced worse, Jack muttered, gripping his weapon tighter. The fight began fast. Jack fired from cover while the hunters moved in patterns, trying to flank him. His shield was breaking and his energy cells were low, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. Then, something happened. Luma stepped out from behind the crates, her body glowing brighter than ever, her hands trembling but raised high. Stop! She shouted in her native tongue. Her voice echoed unnaturally. The hunters paused. One of them hesitated. She activated the bond fully, he muttered. That energy, its protective phase. Jack didn't understand what they meant, but he saw the hunters backing away, their scanners blinking red as if reading a dangerous power. Luma looked at them, her voice shaking. I choose him. I touched him. I bonded. You take me. I die. The leader of the hunters growled. Then so be it. He raised his weapon, but Jack fired first. The shot hit the hunter's leg, knocking him down. The others turned to help, and Jack fired again, forcing them to retreat toward their ship. They cursed in their language and lifted off, vanishing into the sky. Silence returned. Jack dropped his weapon and ran to Luma, who had collapsed on the ground, still glowing faintly. You okay? He asked, holding her close. She nodded weakly. Used too much energy. But safe. Jack looked at her, his heart pounding. You didn't have to do that. She smiled faintly. I wanted to, because you're mine now. He didn't know what to say, so he just held her gently, quietly. That night, they didn't speak much, just sat beside the fire, sharing warmth and silence. But both of them knew something had changed forever. The storm rolled in fast that night. Heavy snowflakes fell from the sky, covering the hilltops in white silence. Jack hadn't seen this kind of snowstorm in years. It was cold, wild, and made everything feel quiet and dangerous. Luma stayed close to him inside the workshop, wrapped in thick blankets. Her glow had faded since the hunters left, her body weak, like her powers had drained too much. But her eyes still watched Jack with quiet strength. Jack locked every door and window just in case. He had patched the shield but didn't trust it to hold another attack. Outside, the wind howled like a hungry beast. I don't think they're done, Jack said, checking the scanner. Luma nodded. They always return, stronger. Jack knew she was right. The clan wouldn't accept defeat, not after she bonded with a human, not after declaring her choice in front of their hunters. He walked to the weapon cabinet and pulled out an old exosuit. It was dusty, dented, and missing a few parts, but it still worked. A heavy frame of armor designed to help humans lift cargo and survive harsh planets. What's that? Luma asked softly. Insurance, Jack replied, in case they come while you're still healing. Luma tried to stand but stumbled. Jack caught her before she fell. Her body was warm but too light, too weak. He helped her back to the cot, laying her down gently. I want to help, she whispered. You already did, he said, brushing her hair from her eyes. Now it's my turn. Morning came gray and silent. The snow had covered the entire yard, turning the world white and quiet. Jack stepped outside in the exosuit, his breath fogging the visor. He scanned the ridge, then he saw them. Two figures moving fast through the snow, not walking, hovering just above the surface, hunters again. Jack activated the defense grid and raised his blaster. They're back, he shouted inside. Lum. A sat up, clutching her necklace. Be careful. The hunters didn't speak. They fired first, red bolts lighting the snow like fire. Jack rolled behind the old cargo crate and returned fire. The suit gave him strength and speed, but the hunters were faster this time. One shot hit the side of the workshop, sending sparks across the yard. Another hit Jack's shoulder plate, denting it hard. He grunted and pushed forward, snow flying as he charged through the smoke. He slammed into the first hunter, knocking him into the ground. The snow exploded around them. Jack swung hard, metal fist hitting armor. The hunter kicked back, sharp and fast. Jack stumbled, but didn't fall. The second hunter circled behind, ready to strike. Then a loud hum filled the air. Luma stood at the doorway, her hands glowing again, brighter than before, her eyes wide, filled with fear, but also fire. She raised her hands and shouted something in her native tongue. A wave of soft blue light burst from her palms, pushing the second hunter back like a gust of wind. He hit the ground hard and didn't move. Jack turned to her. "You said you were too weak." She smiled faintly. "Not when it's you." The first hunter stood again, snarling. He charged at Jack, blade drawn, but Jack was ready this time. He caught the arm mid-swing and twisted hard, breaking the weapon and slamming the hunter to the ground. Breathing heavy, Jack stood over him. "She's not yours," the hunter hissed. "She belongs to her blood." "No," Jack said, "she belongs to herself." He fired one last stun blast, and the hunter dropped cold into the snow. Luma ran to him, her steps shaky. She threw her arms around him, pressing her cheek to the cold metal of his chest plate. "You saved me again," she whispered. Jack knelt down and took off the helmet, snow falling onto his hair. He looked at her with tired eyes. "I'll always save ye." Ow! The snow kept falling, but inside that moment, they were warm, together. The snowstorm had passed, but the chill stayed in the air. Jack sat near the heater, sipping warm broth, bruises forming under his shirt. Luma sat beside him, wrapped in a thick coat, her legs tucked under her, her hands holding the broken necklace she always carried. She had barely spoken since the fight. Just watched the fire, her glowing eyes dim and thoughtful. Jack finally broke the silence. "Luma, I need to know." She looked up slowly. "You said they traded you," he continued, "said you were royalty." She nodded, her lips trembling. "Yes." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But why would they trade you? And what do they mean about the bond being illegal?" Luma held the necklace tighter, like it was the only thing that still connected her to her past. "I tell you now," she whispered. "All of it." Jack nodded and waited. Luma took a breath. "I was born in the palace of Zareth," she said, "one of the 3 royal daughters, but my blood was not pure." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" "My father, a king," she whispered. "My mother, a servant from a lower race. They called me dirty blood." Jack's fists clenched. He had seen this kind of cruelty before, on many planets, same story, different species. "I grew up in silence," she continued, "not allowed to speak at the royal table, not allowed to train with my sisters. I was a shadow." Jack's chest ached hearing her words. "One day they made a deal with another clan," Luma said, voice sharper now. "They promised a royal daughter in marriage, but not the eldest, not the second. They chose me because I was worth less." Jack leaned back, shocked. "They tried to give you away." Luma nodded. "To a cruel warlord, older than my father. I heard them speak of it, like I was a coin." She looked at Jack now, her eyes watering. "So I ran, took a pod from the hangar, fled into the stars. The ship broke. I landed near your home." Jack exhaled slowly. "And when you touched me..." Luma nodded again. "I didn't know the rules of your kind, but mine. Touch means a soul link, especially face touch. It's what a princess does when she chooses." Jack stared at her, speechless. "So that first night, you accidentally chose me?" She looked away. "Yes, and no." "What do you mean?" She hugged the necklace to her chest. "I didn't mean to, but my heart already had. I saw your eyes, your warmth. I reached out without thinking." Jack's breath caught in his throat. He remembered the moment clearly, her glowing hand on his cheek, her shock, her panic, her red face. "It was real," he said softly. She looked at him. "Yes, it was the most real thing in my life." Jack stood up slowly, walking to the window. The snow had started falling again, light and quiet. "The bond," he said. "Why do they call it illegal?" Luma's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I chose outside my kind. A royal must only bond with nobles. They say my choice is shame." "But you don't regret it?" Jack asked, still looking at the snow. She stood too, walked to his side and took his hand gently. "I would choose you again, even if it meant exile, even if it meant death." Jack turned to her, his eyes soft. "You're not ashamed, Luma. You're the bravest person I've ever met." Her eyes glowed, and she smiled through tears. "Thank you." They stood in silence, hand in hand, as snow fell around them, not speaking, but feeling. And in that silence, a truth stronger than any rule was born. They didn't need a crown or bloodlines or approval. They had something better, each other. Jack had always lived a quiet life, fixing machines, brewing cheap coffee, listening to old music from Earth. He never thought he would share that life with anyone, let alone a glowing alien girl who touched his heart without even trying. But now, Luma was part of everything he did. She followed him around the workshop, asking questions in her soft, curious voice. She had learned many English words by now, but sometimes she would mix them up and laugh at herself, and every time she laughed, her cheeks lit up, and so did Jack's heart. He didn't say it out loud, but he looked forward to hearing her voice every morning. She had started trying human things too. She wore a patched-up jacket that was way too big for her. She helped organize wires, though she always tangled more than she fixed. Once, she tried to make toast but burned it black. When she offered it to Jack, she smiled proudly like it was a feast. He ate it anyway. One afternoon, she stood on a crate beside him while he repaired a rusted crawler bot. She handed him tools one by one, carefully remembering their names. "This is wrench," she said, smiling. "Close," Jack replied. "That's a ratchet." She nodded seriously. Ratchet. "You're learning fast," he said. "Soon you'll be better than me." She giggled and looked away. Her fingers brushed his hand as she passed the next tool. She froze for a second, her eyes wide, and then slowly... She didn't pull away. Jack looked at her. "Still scared of the touch?" Luma shook her head. "Not scared, but heart go boom boom." Jack laughed softly. "Mine too." That evening they sat by the fire again, sharing a blanket over their shoulders. Outside, the wind whispered across the snow. Inside, it was warm. Because of her, because of them. "Your rules are strange," Luma said suddenly. Jack raised an eyebrow. "My rules?" "Humans," she explained. "You chew. See with words. My kind chooses with touch." Jack nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess we use words too much and feelings too little." She looked at him, her eyes glowing gently. "Then I'm glad I'm not human." He chuckled. "I'm glad you're not either." There was a pause, soft and sweet. Then Luma whispered, "You feel it too, right?" Jack didn't need to ask what she meant. He felt it every time she looked at him, every time she smiled, every time her tiny hand touched his skin and made his whole body feel warm. "Yes," he said, "I feel it too." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I don't want to go back to my people." "You don't have to," Jack said firmly. "This is your home now, with me." Luma closed her eyes and smiled. "Then I'm safe." Later that night, Jack found her staring at a cracked mirror in the corner. She touched her own reflection and whispered, "Do I look strange to you?" Jack stood behind her, his voice soft. "No, you look like someone who belongs here." She turned, her cheeks glowing pink. "Even with silver hair? Glowing skin?" He smiled. "Especially because of that." Her eyes watered, but this time not from fear or sadness. "You see me different than they did," she said. "I see you as you are," Jack replied, "not what they told you to be." She reached out slowly, her hand resting on his chest. "Then let me stay near your heartbeat," she whispered. "It keeps mine steady." Jack didn't move, didn't speak. He just pulled her gently into a hug, her arms wrapped around his waist, her head resting under his chin. There was no need for more words. They already understood each other in the way only soul-bonded hearts could. And in that small workshop, under the cold stars, two hearts beat together, not as human and alien, but as something new, something beautiful, something real. The sun had not yet risen when Jack heard the sound again, not from the snow, not from the wind, but from the sky. A deep hum vibrated through the walls, louder and lower than before. Jack dropped the tool in his hand and rushed to the scanner. The display flickered. 3 heat signatures, fast-moving, heading straight toward them. "They're back," he muttered. Luma sat up from her cot, still half asleep, but her body reacted fast. Her glow pulsed, faint at first, then brighter. "Same ship?" she asked. Jack shook his head. "No, bigger this time. Probably their command transport." Luma's expression turned serious. "If command is here, they bring death." Jack grabbed his old exosuit, the same one that saved him before. It was damaged, but he had repaired most of it. He slid into the suit, piece by piece, his face calm, but his hands moving quickly. Luma walked to him, standing on her toes to press her forehead to his chest plate. "Come back," she whispered. "Come back to me." "I will," he promised, "no matter what." Moments later, the sky roared above the ridge. A heavy gunship descended through the clouds, sleek and black. shaped like a hunter's blade. The ship hovered just outside the shielded yard. 3 armored warriors stepped out, each larger and more heavily armed than before. The leader removed his helmet, revealing sharp blue skin and burning red eyes. "You were warned, human," he growled. "Return the royal girl or suffer the price of war." Jack stepped forward in the exosuit, visor glowing. "She's not yours to take." "She is Zareth blood," the hunter spat, "and she broke our law by bonding with a human." "She broke chains," Jack replied, "not law." The leader raised a massive energy spear and charged. The ground shook under his heavy steps. Jack raised his shield and met him head-on, metal crashing into metal. A shockwave burst out, shaking the snow. Oh, from the rooftops, inside the workshop, Luma pressed her hands together. Her skin glowed brighter than ever. She whispered an ancient phrase, her voice full of power and fear. "Let the light that binds. Now protect." Her body glowed blue-white, and a pulse of energy flowed from her chest, racing through the floor, reaching Jack just as the hunter's weapon struck again. A protective shield burst around him. Luma's energy wrapped him like armor. Jack moved faster now, stronger. He slammed into the leader, knocking him backward into the snow. The other 2 hunters moved in, firing stun blasts and energy bolts, but Jack dodged, countered, rolled, and fought like a storm. Then one blast hit him in the leg. His suit sparked, slowed. He dropped to one knee. From the hilltop, a soft voice rang out. "Stop!" The snow around them lit up with pale blue light. Luma stood there, no longer hiding, her small frame glowing like a star. Her eyes locked on the hunters. "This is my choice," she said loudly, "and if you take him, I will burn my own blood." The leader hissed. "You dare threaten your own clan?" "I deny my clan," she said, her voice clear. "You never saw me as living, only as a trade." She raised her hands, and the light around her grew so bright that even the hunters had to look away. The wind stopped, the snow froze in place, and everything went still. The leader dropped his weapon. "We will report this," he growled, "but we will not die here." The hunters retreated to their ship and vanished into the clouds. Jack lay in the snow, breathing hard, suit cracked and steaming. Luma ran to him, dropped beside him, and placed her hands on his chest. Her glow sank into him like warmth, and his breath steadied. "You came out," he whispered. "You needed me," she said, "and I am yours." Jack smiled weakly. "I think I'm yours too." They sat together in the snow, the storm gone, the world quiet again. But they both knew. This fight wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The fire crackled softly inside the workshop, casting golden light on the walls. Jack sat in the corner, wrapped in a warm blanket, his shoulder bandaged, his face calm but tired. He had won the fight, but not without pain. Luma sat close to him, her legs crossed, her hands folded in her lap. Her glow had returned, soft and gentle. Her eyes never left his face, not since she healed him in the snow. Outside, the storm had passed. The sky was clear, stars blinking like distant memories. But inside, something much bigger was about to happen. "Jack," Luma whispered, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," he replied. She looked down, nervous. "In my world, when a soul bond is accepted, there is one final step." Jack tilted his head. "What kind of step?" Luma stood, walking slowly to the mirror near the wall. She looked at her reflection, silver hair, glowing skin, wide blue eyes. "We touch. Not just hands or face, but hearts. We call it the choosing touch. It makes the bond complete." Jack stood as well, careful with his injured shoulder. "And if I don't do it?" She turned to him, her voice low. "Then the bond fades, slowly. My glow will dim, my heartbeat will weaken until it stops." His chest tightened. "That serious?" She nodded. "But I don't want it because of duty. I want it only if your heart feels the same." Jack walked to her, their feet inches apart now. He looked into her glowing eyes, full of fear, hope, and something stronger. Love. "I never asked for this," he said gently, "but every moment with you has changed me." She bit her lip, waiting. "I want to feel your touch," he whispered, "because I choose you." Luma gasped softly. Her hands trembled as she reached up. Her fingertips touched his chest, right over his heart. Then she took his hand and pressed it to her own chest. Her glow flared bright, white, blue, violet, all at once, filling the room. "Me like sunrise," she whispered. "You touched my heart. Now it belongs to you." Jack closed his eyes, feeling the warmth spread through his chest, like her heartbeat had joined with his. His pain faded, not just the wounds, but the loneliness he had carried for years. When he opened his eyes again, Luma was smiling, glowing, her entire body lit with life, her bond fully awakened. She leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. "Now I am whole," she whispered. They stood there in silence, 2 lives now one, no more fear, no more hiding. Later that night they sat by the fire again, but something was different. There was no distance between them now, no hesitation in her gaze, no blush when he touched her hand. Just peace. Jack looked at her. "What happens now?" Luma smiled. "Now, we live. Together?" he asked. "Always," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. In the days that followed, Jack rebuilt the broken parts of his home. But this time, Luma helped him with more than tools. She helped him smile more, laugh more. She brought life into the cold corners of his quiet world. The hunters never returned, maybe too afraid or maybe too ashamed. It didn't matter anymore, because Jack no longer cared about being alone. He wasn't. Every morning, Luma would greet him with a glow and a smile. Every night, she would fall asleep beside him, her heartbeat steady because of his. They were different in every way, and yet perfect together. Human rules didn't matter here. Alien traditions didn't matter either. Only the choice they made did. One touch started it all, and one choice made it forever.